You know, when I first started Airbnb like 4 years ago, I never once in my in my wildest dreams thought that I'd be buying a beach house. And that's what my favorite thing about Airbnb is, that you can buy property that you own, that you get to enjoy for part of the year, and you can actually, oh, plane, go wherever you're going. This is my favorite part about Airbnb, is that you can buy properties and you can use them whenever you want to recreationally. And instead of paying for the mortgage, you can rent them out to other people on Airbnb and not only subsidize your mortgage, but make money on it. And that's what we're gonna be talking about in today's episode of Robuilt. Okay, let me look at my outline real fast because I already forgot what I was gonna say, because there's planes everywhere. Let's walk this back a little bit. Before you go out and buy a $1.44 million property, you got to work your way up there. And I've been doing Airbnb now for a while, and I really feel like I've graduated to different tiers of being an Airbnb host. When I first started, I was doing rental arbitrage. What, is there someone coming?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just blur them out.
Oh, I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about you getting hit by a bike.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Okay.
Maybe leave that in, Caleb. Or Caleb? Oh, who am I talking to? And a lot of people in the Airbnb industry get started out this way because you can get into a property for a couple $1,000s, rent out an apartment or someone else's house or condo. You can furnish it and you can list it on Airbnb, all for the cost of furniture, first month's rent, and sometimes a security deposit. And so I got started in this, and I really, my mind was kind of blown by the power of Airbnb, because I was renting an apartment for $1,850 every single month. That was really expensive for me at the time. I mean, it's expensive for anyone at any time. It's still expensive, but I listed that on Airbnb, and from a profit standpoint, I was making like $1,000 to $2,000 a month. That to me was my student loan payment, which was about $1,000, and sometimes it was my credit card debt, because I talk about this a lot on the channel, because before I got into Airbnb, I was $100,000 in student loan debt and credit card debt.
And you should really stop before you post something, because it makes you look stupid.
80-20, $80,000 student loan, $20,000 credit card. And so the light bulb went off in my head, and I realized, okay, $1,000 to $2,000 is a lot of money. So what if I had 10 of these? And so I proceeded to buy a house in LA. I rented out my studio apartment under my house, and I was making $2,000 to $3,000 a month from that. And so whenever I combined that $2,000 to $3,000 a month from the studio under my house and the $1,000 to $2,000 a month I was making on rental arbitrage in my very first Airbnb apartment, I was easily covering my $4,400 mortgage payment in Los Angeles, California. And then I went out and bought a condo in Austin with a couple of friends of mine for $279,000. I started a glam site that was 2 tents, vintage Airstream, a yurt, and a tiny A-frame, and this all just started to compound from a monetary standpoint. But more important than the money I ever made from Airbnb was the knowledge that I got from Airbnb, because I did the whole rental arbitrage thing. I owned a house, I started a glam site, I got a condo that had HOAs on it, and so I've just, little by little, I've leveled up in my experience and what I've been able to do. Fast forward to today, and I have 14 units across the country. I've built a tiny house in Joshua Tree, I built a small house in Joshua Tree, I bought a chalet in the Smoky Mountains, I own 3 houses on the East Coast, I own a house in Wisconsin, and I'm now hopefully about to close on a $1.44 million property in Destin, Florida. Now, even for me, someone who's been through just about everything you could possibly go through as an Airbnb host, from strangers breathing in my closet, which we'll cover that story at a later time, to Airbnb guests passing out in the back of an Uber, to Airbnb guests burning down my A-frame, I've seen a lot, and thus my confidence to take on anything has grown accordingly. The more problems and the more gray hairs that I get, the more I believe in myself to go on and tackle a really nice, awesome, big, expensive premium property. And I say all of this, I mean, it's kind of a long-winded way of saying, if you're gonna buy an expensive property on Airbnb, make sure that you can handle it, make sure that you can handle the price tag, make sure that you have the experience to take something like that on. As much as I like to get on YouTube and say, hey, you can do it, you can start an Airbnb business, believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself with hard work, anything is possible. I still want you to scale up according to your skill level, because I genuinely do believe that anybody can start an Airbnb business, like, no doubt. However, you don't need to start with a home run on your very first property. Every single one of my properties that I've ever listed on Airbnb, ooh, the scenery here is just so great. Every single one of my houses and listings that I've ever put on Airbnb have been an absolute home run from the gate. And that's because I never stretched myself too thin. I scaled up accordingly. There are plenty of gurus and Airbnb experts out there that are like, I've got 800 units and I make $1 million a month. Cool. Good for them. Could I be there? Yeah. Could I have taken on a lot more debt? Yeah. Could I have worked with investors a lot more to get to that point? Sure. But ultimately, to me, I wanted to do Airbnb right, have a really good foundation before I just started going all in. Because at the end of the day, I really do consider myself just a regular guy that left his job to start a cool Airbnb business. So that leads me to today, where I bought a property That's beachfront. No, I'm just kidding. Not really. It's like 1 block away, and this isn't even the beach. We're in LA right now. But the house is located in Destin, Florida. So you're probably asking, why Destin, Florida specifically? And I actually do have a reason for this. If you follow any of my philosophies on the channel, then you know I like investing by national parks, state parks, eclectic towns, and vacation destinations. And so when I say a vacation destination, I mean something like a beach town or a lake town or a mountain town or a ski town, anything like that. But to me, the ultimate vacation destination is a beach. People will pay a very high premium to stay at a house that's on the beach or very close to the beach, which is where my house is, about 1.5 blocks away from the beach, which is perfect walking distance. There are so many beaches across the country that work, but Destin to me just seems like a really nice hotspot. 4.5 million people visit it every single year. So there's one really big like type of moment. What is that called? Like a record scratch moment. And that's when I looked at the actual price tag of the house, which is $1.44 million, which I've mentioned is kind of expensive. But there was one pretty significant factor about this house that I thought really just gave it a lot of potential from an income standpoint. And it's that it's not just one house. It's actually two. It's a front house, and then behind the house there's like the somewhat of a carriage house, which is basically like a 2-car garage with another 1,000 square foot house standing over it. And this is a strategy that I talk a lot about to my host camp students, which is the duplex strategy. And I really love the duplex strategy for so many reasons. Reason one, if you wanted to house hack, you can live in the front side of it and then rent out the back side to either subsidize your mortgage or even make money. Or where it gets really interesting, that's when you rent out both units together. So instead of actually renting out to 2 different parties, you can rent it to one really big group or 2 families that are traveling together. And the really nice thing is, because they're separate houses, you can charge a really big premium for it. I have a friend a couple miles down the road from there who has 2 duplexes. He bought each one for $250,000, so a total of 4 units. And in July and August, on those 4 units, he grossed $144,000. Yeah, pretty nuts. And he made that much money because it was 2 units and 2 families could go and stay there together, and they paid a premium for it. So you're probably thinking, well, Rob, why wouldn't a family just go and rent a really big house instead of paying a premium for 2 separate houses? And it might seem like an obvious question on the surface, but you have to consider a few things with the duplex strategy. If 2 families are traveling together with kids, kids are freaking crazy, and families and parents can really only deal with their kids. They don't want to have to deal with like the other family's kids and all that kind of stuff. So there's something to be said about having your own quarters that you can go and retire to and put your kids down, and you can cook food for your separate family, and everyone's got their own bathroom and shower, and they don't really have to commingle with the other family. So I saw this opportunity with this property, which is $1.44 million, but it really just starts to click with me because I start going through all the comps on AirDNA, and I started to see that this property on the low end could gross $200,000. However, as I started looking through all the different comps, I just noticed that the interior design level in Destin, Florida was just not super high. Like, everyone out there kind of does the same thing. They do gray laminate floors, they do white shaker style cabinets, they do baby blue walls and very minimal furniture. And so I thought if I could come in and do this like retro beach pop art meets color blocking.
It's all over their face. My family loves the
Oh my God, Nadine, this tastes like
interior design palette and have like the nicest interior design and have fun with the colors and really splurge on the furniture and have 2 separate houses with a pool, then maybe I can push this up to $250,000 to $300,000. Now, I'm not going to be able to do that just because it's nice furniture and it looks cool on the inside. There's a few other value adds that I'm going to be adding to this property as well. As I mentioned, this property has a pool, which is kind of a must in this area. And according to my realtor out there, a pool can add $20,000 to your gross revenue on Airbnb. So I'm really glad to have that. I'm going to add a couple golf carts so that people who are lazy and don't want to walk to the beach can golf cart to the beach. And then the house has 2 really big garages that are currently just like wooden studs. So I actually want to come in and add value to these garages. I want to completely finish out the garages with drywall. I plan on converting one garage into an entire gym that's like fully decked out with like dumbbells, weight benches, yoga mats, all that kind of stuff. And then in the other garage, I want to deck that out into like the ultimate playroom. And this to me is like an untapped niche in Airbnb. As a parent, like, my kids are crazy, and I'm actually selecting Airbnbs based on how minimal they are, because the more furniture there is in an Airbnb, the more things there are for my kid to climb up on and fall on and trip on and hurt herself on. And so as an Airbnb guest myself, I am now choosing all of my different Airbnbs based on how minimal they are / how child-proof and kid-friendly they are. And so for me, I wanted to create a space where parents could just bring the kids, drop them off in the playroom, sit down and relax, and not have to worry about their kids like toppling over dressers or like tripping on coffee tables or anything like that. So when you start adding all these amenities together, 2 separate houses, 2 separate sets of bathrooms, 2 kitchens, a pool, golf carts, a home gym, a kid's playroom, we start kind of really getting into like this mega Airbnb like compound. Now the actual space is not huge, it's like 2,500 square feet, but when I say compound, I just mean it's like
What cult? Was this a cult?
I had no idea this was a cult.
Way! Although I will say the term cult is a little judgmental.
I would say the same thing, yeah.
Not knowing the full doctrine.
anything that 2 families are gonna need are gonna be on site, and if they never actually wanna leave and go to the beach, that's totally fine because this Airbnb is so decked out with so many amenities for them to have a good time. So running the numbers on this a bit, I'm doing a down payment that's 15%, and all in, after all my different costs and everything associated with getting this Airbnb up and running, I'm gonna be at the $300,000 to $350,000 mark, which is a lot of cash, definitely the most I've ever spent on an Airbnb. But on the low end, this Airbnb should bring a cash on cash return of 30%, all the way up to 50%. And this is really gonna depend on if I gross $200,000, like the low end that I think I'm gonna gross, or $300,000, which is a bit of a bold prediction, but I think I can do it. I think this property has the potential for that. And then if I end up grossing $250,000, and I think that's pretty good too. All right, so we're back here in like my pseudo studio for the time being, don't ask questions. And I wanted to take a quick second to talk through the AirDNA data and some of the things that I'm using to surmise, that's the correct word, surmise some of the gross revenue projections. So just putting in the address here, it shows that the annual revenue for this specific property is gonna be $144,000, which is very low. Now, remember, this is a 3-2 and a 2-2. So what I really wanna do is take the projections for each of those respectively. So if we go in here and we change it to a 3-2, we say that we're gonna host 8 guests in there, then you'll see that we're at $83,400. So if we drop that down to a 2-2 and we get that to 6 guests, then we're now looking at $81,700. So not a huge difference there. I think that might be a little high comparatively to the other one. So just adding those together, we're looking at about $165,100. Now I actually know the people right next door. They're one of the realtors that I'm connected with. They have a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, and I believe they said that they're making $160,000 on their 4-4. So I'm not too off here, but considering I'm a 5-4, I should definitely be able to fetch a little bit more than that. Not only do I have an extra room, I have 2 separate houses. I'm gonna have way more amenities, and that's why I think I'm gonna be able to push this right past $200,000, no problem. So let's go ahead and max this out here on AirDNA back to 14 guests. And when you do that, you'll see that I'm about $151,800 here. It says at 648 at a 64% occupancy, which I think again is a little low. I mean, it is seasonal out there. So for sure, most of my business and revenue is gonna come from, let's say, March through August, but Destin is a little bit more insulated from the typical seasonality that beach towns see. So whenever you actually pay for the AirDNA Market Minder, you're able to actually go into the top properties and see how they're performing. So if you look at some of these, the top properties here for a 5-bedroom, 4-bath is 126, 184, 114, 136, 46,000, that's probably a bit of an anomaly, 30,000 anomaly, 182,000, 186,000, 192,000, 205,000, 245,000, and 211,000. So it looks like the top performing properties in this area are between $180,000 and $200,000. I'm gonna just take a look at this one right here because this one is very colorful, almost in the way that I want to do it. I kind of want to see what we're working with here from a competition standpoint because the house actually looks pretty similar. It's got a bit of a different look to it, but let's see what the inside. So the outside is very colorful, but the inside, we go exactly to what I said, which is kind of like the light laminate floors, all white, kind of very basic furniture, not very colorful or really too beachy on the inside. It's not beachy, but it could be a little bit more playful, I think. So knowing that this is one of my bigger competitors in the area and they're making $186,800, I know that I can outmarket them, outperform them, amenity them. And if I just do my thing, I know that I can crush this market. So obviously this is just like a very quick audit because you can actually get very nitty gritty with some of these metrics and compare yourself to the 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile, 90th percentile in terms of occupancy rates. We won't get into that in this video, but if you're interested in a little bit more of a nitty gritty deep dive into the AirDNA platform, leave a comment down below letting me know that you want a video about that. And more than likely, I'll make one. And now back to the beach. Okay, so small update. Since making this video not too long ago, I just got the appraisal back on this property in Destin, Florida, and unfortunately this property appraised for $300,000 less than I offered. Now typically when an appraisal comes in, you know, if it's under, it's gonna be under by 50,000 bucks. Max is what the max I've ever seen. Usually an appraisal might come in $5,000 to $35,000 under. But because the appraisal came in at a discrepancy of almost 25% of the purchase price, unfortunately I wasn't able to cover that gap, and the sellers weren't willing to come down in price, and there wasn't really a happy medium here. I'm a little bummed out about it because this did fall out of escrow like not minutes before closing, but definitely in the final hours. But at the end of the day, the way I view this is I didn't lose this house. I saved $300,000. And I know you're probably thinking, well, why even release this video if you're not gonna buy this house anymore? But the fact of the matter is that everything that I talked about today still applies, and I'm actually looking at 2 deals right now that still fall within that duplex criteria that are a little bit more in line with the sales price that I need to be in so that I can still appraise, because as you know, deals fall apart in the final seconds. Also, it's Monday and I don't have anything else recorded, edited, or ready to go. So